Hello and welcome to the channel today. I'm Will and I'm going to be talking about my first mid-month update of 2025. It is near the middle of January. It is actually the 10th of January. I'll be travelling back to uni over the next few days, so I won't actually have time to record on the actual mid of the month. So I'm recording now and I'll be talking about the books I've read, what I'm currently reading and what I'm reading next. So hopefully you're interested in those. A lot of them are uni dominated, except the first ones, which are uni unrelated, and a nice mix of genres in my opinion as well. Hopefully you think so too. So to start it off, let's talk of course about the books that I've read so far, my first reads of 2025. The first one I finished was A History of Britain in 10 Enemies by Terry Deary. He is the author of The Horrible Histories, which children adore. I didn't really read much of them as a child, but I watched a lot in school and it was entertaining, making history fun. That's what we love to see. And that's basically what Terry Deary has done here, but for adults and teenagers. So I think adults will like this more than teenagers because a lot of the witty, sharp humour is sarcastic and it's dry as well, which I think adults usually find more enjoyable and understand more than children. It is what it says on the cover. It takes us through the history of Britain, through 10 enemies that Britain has had. It does so in a chronological order, so we go from as far back in time as Terry Deary chooses to go and up to the present day. I think there's a very great balance between detail and then entertainment. There are anecdotes, little stories that link us back to why these tales of the past are relevant to us today. And Terry Deary, I think he does a really great job of educating you and entertaining you. A fine balance is struck. This is a broad overview. It's not going to be a deep dive, so if that's what you're looking for, this is not the book to go to. But if you want a broad overview, you want something that might pinpoint what you're interested in so that you can dive into some more in-depth analysis after you can do that. Or if you just want kind of a light non-fiction read that is still going to teach you a lot and entertain you in a way that makes the facts stay in your head for longer in a very intriguing way, then I would pick this up. I highly recommend. It was a really nice way to kick off 2025. I've had a lot of dense university reads lately. Some of them I've really enjoyed, but dense nevertheless. And so it was nice for something a bit lighter, one that I could dip my toe in, then leave for a while, then come back. And it doesn't matter because if you've forgotten the rest of the story, well, that's a different chapter, a different period of history. He's on to the next. You don't need to connect all the dots. So really enjoyable, great way to kick off 2025. And then I read and finished Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. My first Crichton read, and I'm impressed. Jurassic Park, I loved the films when I was younger. I haven't watched them for many years now, but I loved them. And it was really interesting to see the differences in the book. I need to refresh myself on the first Jurassic Park, which of course most people say is the best one, but probably not the one I've watched the most. But I need to refresh myself because I think Spielberg made some fantastic choices. Been talking about it a lot with my brother Ed and Papa Gwyn, who have also read Jurassic Park. Looking at Spielberg's choices, how he made it different, were they successful, and also a part I prefer about the book is the political machinations in the background, the espionage, the sabotage, and the commercial machinations that are going on for control. It really added a whole new layer to the story of Jurassic Park that I really, really enjoyed, beyond just the science and the people on the ground. It added a lot of depth. It made it feel realistic. I thought, wow, this is actually what would be happening if dinosaurs were brought into the current world that we live in. It was really enjoyable. Crichton writes in a way that is a bit Stephen King-esque in that we follow a wide cast of characters, each with very established backgrounds and motivations. You don't feel they're just chucked in there for plot's sake. They feel like they've earned their place. They're there for a reason. And their role is just because it's a coincidence they're there. And that is why, of course, he's very different to Stephen King, but that was the similarity I thought of between these two authors. The wide range of POVs worked really well. There are some POVs I preferred over others, but there wasn't a weak one per se, and they all really added something unique. Great cast of characters, really enjoyed it. Jurassic Park is just one that never fails to lose its charm, its mysticism, and that idea of bringing dinosaurs is just magical. But then magic can be good and bad, and we see both parts of that with Jurassic Park. As I'm sure you know the story, dinosaurs aren't going to be tame, are they? So people have to bear the consequences of that. So they're the two books that I've read so far. Now going on to what I'm currently reading. I am reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. This is a university read. Really enjoying it so far. It is just crazy. It's a children's story by Lewis Carroll, and he just went to town with this. It is mental. I'm only about 10-15 pages in, but it is so creative, but in a way that is just mind-boggling, especially for if you think of the period it was written in. Authors and people of the time were a bit more restrained, a bit more stoic, and that's thrown out the window of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I think she's a really intriguing character as well. I love that she's very creative. I love that there's a line that she gives really great advice and she's very insightful. But she doesn't take it herself, and that's just a really unique characteristic pinpoint that makes her just really fascinating to follow. And I'm really enjoying it so far. It's quite a short book as well, so nice compared to uni, which usually gives me 700-800 pages to read, so that's a nice difference. But there we go, that is the book I'm currently reading, and I haven't actually started it yet, but I'm going to straight after this start listening to The Tainted Cup. It won the Patreon pick for the month over on my Patreon I have with my brother on the Brothers Gwyn. It won the vote. I know basically nothing about this. I know that it's burst onto the fantasy scene. It might be a bit detective-esque, but I sometimes like to dive into something having no knowledge of what it's actually about. All I know is I've heard rave reviews, and it is the talk of the town at the moment, and so I'm looking forward to starting The Tainted Cup, some fantasy to chuck into the mix. And yes, it will be my first fantasy read of 2025 of the year, so in January really picking up on all of my main genres. Unless actually you count Alice's Adventures in Wonderland as fantasy. I would, but it's children's fiction as well. It's a weird mix, an amalgamation of genres. Next up to what I'll be reading next, I have got Beowulf, Tom Shippey's translation, which I adore. I'll be rereading this in preparation for an exam for my old English module. Tom Shippey's edition is personally my favourite. I think it straddles the line between interpretation and staying loyal to the root material. I really love Tolkien's translation as well, but his isn't as honest to the original. It's of course a take that is very admired and one that I love to follow. But Tom Shippey, for me, I don't know, he just captures what I love about Beowulf better than anyone else in my opinion. I've also read Seamus Heaney's, also great. I don't think you can really do a bad translation of Beowulf if, well, I'm meaning if you're an expert. Obviously, I would do a bad translation, but if you're an expert translating Beowulf, I love the root material. I love the themes it engages with. I love the progression of this epic poem. And so, yeah, that is Beowulf. I'll be rereading it. This is my third time reading Tom Shippey's edition. Beowulf might be the tale I have read the most, other than if you combine all the Arthurian legend tales I've read. Because I've read Tolkien's twice, Seamus Heaney's twice, and this 3 times. Wow, that is quite a lot actually. So hoping I'm quite familiar with Beowulf. But each time I find different things to focus on and take away. That is one of the wonderful things about a lot of these uni texts, is they offer different fascinations each time you dive in. And then next up I've got a read which might not sound as invigorating. It's The Origin of Species by Charles Darwin. So this is of course about evolution, about how we fit into the planet. And it's meant to be accessible science, so I've not really read a book that is accessible science. So that'll be interesting. I was a bit put out when, for my seminar, a group of 5 or 6 of us would be talking to a specialist about a specific Victorian book. And it was going to be Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And then someone asked for it to be The Origin of Species, and I was outvoted. But hopefully I'm pleasantly surprised. Hopefully I really enjoy The Origin of Species, and I enjoy the discourse around it. And so that is another uni read. So I think half of what I'm reading in January is dictated by uni reads. And on top of it, I'll be reading a lot of academic papers, especially ones regarding my history modules. But they're not books per se, so I'm not including them in this list. But there we go. They are the books that I've read, I'm currently reading, and will be reading next in January. Hopefully I can get through more, but I thought I'd be a bit restrained, make sure what I'm definitely going to read, and hopefully I get through them all. But everyone, thank you so much for watching. Carpe diem.